chat. I think we're
Okay.
live now. Yeah. Okay, cool. We're live, my man. So, all right, guys. So, just wanted to jump on with Brad. You've probably seen Brad around. He is the assistant coach in the program. So, he's been working with me since middle of last year, mate, that you came on board. Was it around August
Yeah.
time?
Time flies when you're having fun, hey?
Exactly. We're into February now, and we just wanted to jump on and talk a bit more about the mindset side of things, stuff that we actually do within the program itself, and just kind of have a chat about kind of struggles with our own training, but also that we see with clients, and then give you some nuggets that are going to help you guys get unstuck and maybe realize what's the best path of action. So, Brad, I think a good place to start, mate, is what do you see as being like the kind of one to two most common roadblocks you see coming up when you're coaching people?
Yeah, definitely this kind of all or nothing mentality or mindset where you kind of, you start off really well. It's often easiest to start off well. That's kind of, it's the maintaining it that's the trouble. And, life gets in the way, kids get sick, you get sick, work gets stressful, and maybe you don't follow it quite according to the way you had intended, and then you get stressed out and down on yourself, and you kind of things start slipping away when you might rather just understand that going into a program or a new commitment like that, it's not going to go exactly according to plan. And part of the learning and the benefit comes from being able to adapt to make it fit your lifestyle.
Yeah, totally, man. I think it's also just kind of a good thing to think about is like if you look at the last 5 years, you've probably gotten sick. You have you ever gotten sick in the last 5 years?
I mean, I never get sick. I'm immune.
And you've never gotten stressed either. Things
No,
have just
no,
been
no.
super rosy, especially
Yeah,
like during
I
COVID.
meditate for 10 minutes. It's all the stress is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just good to think like, okay, over the last 5 years, if you've kids, there's been issues with sickness. If you've got, obviously relationships have been stressful at certain times. Your own health has probably been compromised as well. So like not being negative, but it's just kind of managing expectations like, okay, this is probably going to happen this year as well. So when that does happen, it's not about being completely derailed or sideswiped like, oh my god, I thought I was going to be doing 8 workouts a week for 2 hours, and now I can't do workout at all. So it's just understanding that this will happen. So how can you navigate stuff when it comes up? So like, let's just say from an advice standpoint, Brad, like it's a guy in his 30s. He's got maybe one or two kids. He's a dad. He's a husband. He's got a busy job, and he's probably looking to train 3 or 4 times a week. And then what's probably happened in the past is he just can't. He struggles with consistency. So like, what advice would you give to someone in that position where maybe partner or kids get sick or he's traveling a lot? Like, should he just kind of stop and then wait for things to get right again, or what's the best approach?
I'd say just give up. Things are never going to change. um, I would say, that it's something we've spoken about a lot and shared with clients is what's your hell week or your floor week? What's the worst possible week that can happen? And what can you reasonably commit to in that period? So maybe it's like a walk on a Tuesday evening and a 15-minute strength session or mobility session on a Thursday. And that's what you commit to. And you know that, well, life's always going to get in the way, but even in the kind of worst worst moments, you probably can do this. And I would say focus on that. Focus on just ticking off and starting small. And just once you've built this into some sort of consistent, uh, lifestyle, you can start adding on to and just increasing over time.
Yeah, totally, man. And like, yeah, just kind of scaling it down, not stopping completely. And like the two kind of main issues I see coming up a lot. The first one is knowing what to do. So the way I explain it is like, if you're not really sure if what you're doing is right, you don't really have confidence. And the way of explaining it, it's kind of like you're trying to get to a destination. So you're trying to go to, like, you're going from Cape Town to Johannesburg, right? Because Brad's in Cape Town.
Just making that
So
nice geographically relevant. I appreciate it.
how many hours is that in the car?
It's about 14 hours.
Okay, yeah, right. So that's insane. Like Ireland north to south is like 5.5 hours. So just imagine you're going on that road, and after like an hour, you're like, I'm not sure if this is the right direction. So then you go back to Cape Town and you go down a different road, and then you just, instead of going 14 hours all the way, you go 1 hour down 50 different roads, and even or 14 different roads. So you've actually been traveling for 14 hours, but you haven't gotten anywhere. And I think that's one of the most common things I see with people, because they're not really sure. They'll start program hopping, they'll start changing things very frequently, and they might actually be on the right path, but then they don't have the confidence or the reinforcements from a coach or someone who knows what they're talking about. And then they're just going back and forth. And the really frustrating thing is that they're actually spending the same amount of time. Like, they've done the 14-hour distance, but they've only gone an hour from their destination. So that's really, really frustrating. And that's kind of the first thing that I see crop up a lot. And you can kind of be in this perpetual, like, you're doing as much as someone who's succeeding, but you're not getting anywhere. And that's like the most frustrating position to be in, right? Because you're actually doing the work, but you're just going, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour instead of like 14 hours. Have you ever done that trip actually?
We've got back and forth, traveling back and forth for
To
100.
have you driven to
Yeah,
Johannesburg before?
I have. Yeah, I've had to do it. I used to work in Johannesburg, and my family was in Cape Town, so and friends, so I would travel it quite frequently. Usually stopping
Wow.
over for a night because I don't know, it wasn't in me to travel for 14 hours in one go.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Uh,
But have
but
you ever been in this analogy that you speak of? I mean, going down one road, turning around because you're not sure it's the right direction. Is that something that you struggled with in the early days?
definitely, yeah. Like, I always say, I just love the Dan John quote. Like, the coach who writes his own programs has an idiot for a client. It's like, that was me. That was me. I was getting injuries for, oh God, like, for the first, this is my 12th year so of coaching. So like the first 6 or 7 years, I was very insecure about getting coaching because I thought that would mean that I didn't know what I was talking about, which
Mm.
is really silly in hindsight. But I was like, oh, I should know everything. I'm 24. I've been a PT for 6 months. I should have it all
The
figured
great
out.
wisdom of 24-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly. I've done a sports science degree. So I just didn't, like, I didn't want to get a coach, and I didn't know, I think I was also just didn't want to be shown up as being incompetent.
Mm.
Um and then I had all of these injuries for years, and my body was just breaking down. Then I remember started working with a PT in Melbourne. Phil is his name. Me and Phil like became really good friends, and he fixed so many issues in like 2 months. And he was like, "Oh, this is like, your shoulders are all off, and like your feet are really weak. So we're just going to do this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes so much sense."
Mm.
And then I became a better coach because then I understood it. And these are really common issues that I see with clients, like kind of neck tension in particular, overactive traps, really, really common with pretty much most people I come across, because it's, your chest gets very tight when you're sitting, and then your upper trap gets painful, your neck gets painful. And then you feel like just massaging it, but that's giving you a little bit of respite from the issue. But the actual
Mm.
issue, it's a structural issue. So the structural issue is that your shoulders are pulled forward, your chest is really tight, and your upper back is extremely weak. So if you reverse that by opening your chest and strengthening your back, the tension releases. So, that was just really helpful for me for fixing my own body, but then also it was just a net win with my coaching as well, because I became a better coach by understanding that. And I've also seen it in business. So my business stuff was not going very well. And then I hired someone who knows about business coaching, and now it's going really well.
Yeah.
So, just I think like we've talked to quite a few clients, and I guess a really good question is like, how long has this pattern been going on for of you, trying? And if it's been going on for, well, more than a year, but sometimes it's going on for decades, maybe it's
Mm.
time for someone to maybe, try a different option, someone who can objectively actually assess you and see where you're going.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, actually, a lot of my clients that I'm seeing in person, they don't have the interest or the capacity because of their work stress or whatever it may be to find out what a good program for them is. They don't, it's not, it's easier to go to someone who can just give them something based on what their goals are and what their current needs are. And they can kind of just forget about it. They just show up, it's a really great, great thing for them.
Yeah, yeah. It's like kind of not a direct analogy, but like if you wanted to, I don't know, do all your own legal work, if you had legal issues or medical issues, and you're like, I can just
uh,
Google all this stuff
yeah,
and
I can
then do.
perform open-hearted surgery on myself, Connor.
And we're not saying obviously these things are way more complex than fitness, but just as an idea, yeah, it's just easier to pay someone to who knows what they're talking about. The second thing I see, Brad, is quitting. So kind of you fail, and then you're like, I'm I'm a complete failure, and I haven't sustained my commitment of, in January I was going to go off sugar and alcohol, and I was going to train 5 days a week, and now it's February, and I just work is busy, and like it's just hard to maintain this, so I'm just going to quit like this. I'm just, and then you can kind of get in your own head about being like, this is just part of who I am. I'm just, I don't follow through with my word, and X, Y, and Z. So do you see that as well? Like, just kind of, I think you were saying it, like the kind of all or nothing mindset.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think part of it is attached to people not taking a long-term enough view about what this is, and I mean, so many of us start something new and we throw ourselves in completely. And I mean, I've done it so many times, boxing, running, and probably if I hadn't have gone so crazy in them, I'd still be doing them now with some enjoyment, But you throw yourself into it and you turn it into your life, almost like it consumes your life, and then it's completely unsustainable, and you either get bored or resentful or injured, or you burn out, and then it's over. Where a much more sensible and sustainable approach is just to start small, So when January the 1st comes around, we don't make these grand gestures and huge commitments, and we just say, you know what, why don't I try and change one thing, make it really small, and at the end of February
Yeah.
maybe I can add to
Yeah. But yeah, I was going to make a stupid joke there, but that's fine.
that.
Awesome, man. So like let's maybe talk about more kind of actionable stuff people can kind of take away from this. And if you're listening, you might resonate with what we talked about to date. But do you want to go through maybe the kind of fixed mindset and the growth mindset? We can kind of go back and forth with this, but do you want to explain what fixed mindset is?
Yeah, so I'm sure many will be familiar with this, but this is Carol Dweck, who, what her book was, Mindset Psychology for Success, I think it was called. Yeah, and fixed mindset is the belief that our abilities are innate. So something that we like, it's a talent. So we either have a talent for languages, or we have a talent for being able to do a handstand, let's say. But then, so when we attempt it and we can't do it, we think, oh, geez, I'll never be able to do this. I'm not someone who can do handstands. I'm not someone who can learn a language. And obviously, a fixed mindset can be very limiting. And we need to adopt what she says is the growth mindset, which is the opposite of that. Talent is, obviously some people are talented. There are people who are gifted and they are told that they're gifted, and maybe that makes them focus more on the activity and they get better and better. But a lot of people, I've got a good friend who's like this. His whole life, he's been, before we knew about fixed and growth mindset, he was growth mindset, just always an opportunity to learn. I'll try this and I'll get better at it just by doing it, with some kind of structure and some kind of focus. So it's a very powerful mindset to have.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, like, you're gonna have fixed mindset and growth mindset with certain things without even kind of realizing it, because, like you said, Brad, you might have been validated when you did something. Oh, you're great at that. I think you're a natural at running or dancing or whatever, French, or maths. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this. I'm gonna practice this more frequently because it makes me feel good being good at stuff. And then you're essentially applying the growth mindset to that activity. And now, 2 decades later, you've never stopped practicing it. So you're awesome at it now. And then the same thing for the fixed mindset is like, I don't know, you sang or you danced or you tried to speak a language or you were playing sport and you're just not really, maybe on that day, or someone slagged you or whatever. And you're like, oh, I feel like an idiot. I feel silly. I'm not going to do that again. And then you just never practiced it. And here we are 2 decades later. And well, yeah, you're awful at it because you've never done it before, or you've done it once in your life. So this kind of brings us onto the next step, which is like the 20-hour rule. And this is from Josh Kaufman's book. It's called The First 20 Hours, I'm pretty sure. And it's basically, you've probably heard of like the 10,000 hour rule, which means like it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert, become a master. The 20-hour rule, he says, it takes about 20 hours to get to a level of proficiency. So that might be you study Spanish for 20 hours and now you can like order a coffee or book a deal, like a sandwich in a shop. And
are you gonna give us an example of that in Spanish?
Quiero tomar bocadillo, por favor.
Nice. What did you just order?
Just a sandwich.
Good.
But some Spanish person's gonna be like, that's not Spanish. Like, what's he? He's just made up random words. So basically, like the first 20 hours, what it allows you to understand is that if you can just actually invest 20 hours in something, you'll get to a level of competence and you'll get past that really uncomfortable phase. So like the example we give is around meditation. Like, do you want to explain that one, Brad?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you think most people will dedicate about 5 to 10 minutes to meditation starting off, which can feel like a very long time, in fact, when you're just beginning. But say you do that maybe 10 minutes a day, say 3 times a week, you're actually only doing around 30 minutes a week. So I'm not sure of the exact maths, but I think it's basically you would need to get to 20 hours. It would take you around 10 or 11 months. So that's actually a very long time to be sticking at something that, you don't really feel like you're doing much or achieving at. But we definitely, I think meditation's an easy one to bin before you start reaping the benefits. And the 20-hour rule is quite nice to think, well, okay, I can actually track this. I can track how long I've been doing it. I've only actually been doing it for 10 hours. That's not a lot. I can keep going, and who knows what I'll feel like when I double that and get to 20 hours, for instance.
Yeah, that's a really good like point. Like, so like, yeah, let's just say you're meditating 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, and like 3 times a week for 10 minutes or 6 times a week for 5 minutes. So that is that's 30 minutes a week times 4 weeks is 2 hours a month. So basically, to get to 20 hours, we multiply 2 hours by 10 months. that's
Mm.
20 hours. Like, so 10 months of meditation is bananas. But like, it gives you like, helps you manage your expectations instead of doing like, oh, I've been doing this for like a month and like, it's really hard, it's not really working. It's like, well, yeah, because you've done 2 hours, like that's why. So yeah, it's just super helpful for managing expectations. And then also sometimes you might be just like, for me, like I think Spanish is a really good example because I'm learning that this year and last year, and I just find it really hard. There's a lot of resistance, and just kind of trying to, and dancing as well as something I'm learning. So I'm really bad at both of those activities, but just kind of saying, okay, like I'm going to invest 20 hours as quickly as I can in them. And now we'll say dancing is much more comfortable. I've done that like twice a week, like 2 hours a week for the last 4 weeks. So I've done 8 to 10 hours, and it's so much more comfortable. Like it's actually
Yeah.
enjoyable now. Um, so that's a really good thing if you are learning the handstand as an example. You're working on your flexibility, and again, it comes back to like the fixed mindset, growth mindset, because if you have a fixed mindset, you've quit way before 20 hours is up. So as a result of that, then you've quit, you haven't invested at least 20 hours, so you're not going to get good at it. So then you just actually believe like you're just fixed that way. Or meditation, oh, my mind is always busy, I can't meditate and I'm bad at it. Well, like I used to coach a guy in Melbourne, and his name is Dharma Mati, actually, and that's like a Buddhist name. Like he was an Australian guy, but he was just had been an actual Buddhist for I think about 30 years, and or even more actually, since the 70s, and he was meditating since the 70s. And this guy would literally go into like the forest for 3 months and go away in a retreat, and people would just like drop food there once a week, and he would just meditate for 3 months. So like super intense meditator. And I used to do mobility work with him because he was in his 60s and he wanted to, for his hips and everything. And I asked him, like, I was like, are you, and he meditates now for 45 minutes every morning, and he has for decades. And I was like, you must be kind of like completely zen. Like, is your mind ever busy in the morning? He was like, every morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was really interesting, because I was like, wow, he's been doing this for 40 years. So he's accumulated, I don't know, 100,000 hours, and his mind is still busy. So like,
Yeah.
if you've been meditating for less than 40 years, chances are your mind is going to be busy as well, right? And it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
mean you're, sorry, go on.
no, it's also this fixation we have on being good. It's nice. Obviously, it's rewarding to be proficient, but we are, very obsessed with, as a culture generally, about being good at something. Whereas, rather than, maybe you can not be so good at something forever, but enjoy it. And like, that's still a real nice win. Like I've been learning the guitar on and off with a great deal of inconsistency. um, and yeah, I don't play nearly as much as I feel I should to progress, but I do really enjoy sound like doing my version of what the guitar sounds like. It's a rewarding, satisfying experience. Although it doesn't, you know, really please the ears of passers-by.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, man. I think that's where, as well, sometimes, especially in fitness, we can be very much outcome focused. And it's great to have like an outcome goal. Like, okay, in 3 months and 6 months and 12 months, I actually want to be 10 kilos lighter. I want to, I don't want to have back pain anymore. And I'd like to be able to do something like a chin up and feel like strong in my body, be able to do like
Mm.
a 10K hike, or go for a 5K run, or be able to get up and down off the ground and play with my kids, play with my dog. And it's good to have these kind of outcome goals, but then you need like a daily, weekly kind of process goal or habits to get you
Mm.
there. And that's what you need to focus on primarily. So you're like, okay, cool, like Brad, in like a year you want to be here, but we're not just focusing on like where you want to be. Let's just say you want to you want to lose like 10 kilos. Brad definitely doesn't need to lose 10 kilos. But like, let's just say that's the goal. Like it's a weight loss goal, or Brad has knee pain or hip pain or something like that. Um, so if he gets fixated on still not being at his ideal weight every week, he's going to drop out. He's going to have a miserable experience. Versus if he can focus on, okay, so basically every week, I'm going to focus on doing 2 sessions a week. That's kind of my minimum. I'm going to focus on my sleep, because if you're underslept, you're going to be always craving sugar, craving caffeine, and then you're going to be wired in the evening. You're probably going to crave alcohol to relax and unwind. So I'm going to focus on like my wind down before bed, and then I'm also going to focus on the first hour of the morning. So maybe I'm just going to like try and have no phone that last hour before bed. So it's going to help me switch off. And then the first hour in the morning, it's going to be kind of your time as well. So then you're much better at managing your stress. And the reason we emphasize these things is because we're trying to reverse engineer making this as easy as possible for Brad to drop the weight. So if we can improve his sleep, we can improve his stress, then the whole stress eating cycle and the poor decisions as a result of being underslept and really stressed is going to be reduced. And then he's just going to, I guess, kind of detach from the outcome emotionally and just be like, okay, these are the things I need to hit each week. And as a result of that, in 6 or 12 months, he's going to get to his destination. That's just the way it's just going to happen that way. But if he's fixated on my back is still sore, I'm still not 10 kilos lighter, X, Y, and Z, he's not going to enjoy the process at all. And most likely will probably quit and drop out as well. Do you want to touch on any of that, Brad?
No, I agree. I was just thinking if there was a training to make me sort of 10 centimeters taller, I would commit to that program. No, it's
we actually have a new program launching next month, mate. If you want to sign up, it's like $10,000.
You just have to strap very heavy weights to your ankles and hang for a long time.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's true. You know, the process is what keeps you going, and if it's kind of just this rush that we all have to get to the end point as well. Like if you remain consistent and you remain mindful and you keep showing up, you do get to where you need to go. It might not be as fast as you had hoped or as you had initially thought you should do, but just keep at it and you get there. And it's far easier to stick to something when when you've got these kind of many check-in points or an aspect that you look forward to. Like just I was speaking to one of the clients today, and he said he feels so good in his body, and that wasn't one of his starting goals. You know, what do you want to achieve? I want to feel good in my body. Not many people actually say that they want to, they want to feel better, but they have kind of goals attached to, losing weight or putting on muscle or increasing flexibility or whatever it may be. But he said, I just feel so good in my body. And what an amazing feeling to wake up feeling good and like able and energized. It's a powerful thing. And that's actually when we tap into those kind of feelings, it's really what sustains us over the long period.
Totally. That's such an important point as well. Like, because if you want to build a new or change your habits, you're not going to change when something feels unpleasant all the time. And that's the kind of big issue with blasting yourself and doing these crazy workouts. Nothing wrong with it from time to time. Definitely you can push the needle. But like, if you look at training as punishment and diet as deprivation, like you're not going to do that long term at all. Because we repeat what we enjoy. And if you hate the thing, well, why would you continue doing it? You're creating a negative feedback loop with the thing that you're trying to change. So we want to create that positive feedback loop with, oh, I feel better when I train. Like your workouts should make you feel better. You shouldn't be limping around after your workouts every day at all. And sometimes, yeah, you'll feel DOMS, like delayed onset muscle soreness. And that's from, like, I did Bulgarian split squats yesterday and I went up on weight. So yeah, I feel a little bit like I can feel like I did something, but like I'm not crawling around the place.
Yeah.
And if so if you're constantly feeling really, really sore, it's hard to move around every time you train, that's going to start making you not want to train anymore. Or like people are always talking about leg day and like, oh, leg day kills me. And it's like, well, you don't need to do everything on one day of the week. Like that's, and you don't need to max out on everything. So it's kind of just thinking like, okay, if I can, I guess we can talk about auto regulation now. That might be a good thing to go into. So like, do you want to just kind of give an overview of what auto regulation is, and then we can kind of give people, I guess I'll give an example then on why it's more effective. Okay, so you can just jump in and tell people what it is first.
Sure. So, I mean, auto-regulation is regulating oneself, really. And what that means is having, being aware enough, looking to your body for feedback to know whether or how that's going to shape your training for the day. So, maybe Tuesday you wake up and you go to your gym or your mat or wherever you train, and it's just not feeling it's not feeling right for you that day. Then, well, it's okay to back off a little bit and adjust, not go the same intensity. It's essentially allowing you to take stock of where your body's at on a particular day, to adjust your training if you need, in order to maintain that consistency over the long term, reducing the risk of injury, increasing your energy levels, and just generally treating your body with a bit of love.
Yeah. And like, just to give a really concrete example of it, let's just imagine you're doing chin-ups. And let's just say you're a guy, you could actually do 10 chin-ups. You're actually a pretty fit guy. We're using 10 because it's just an easy number. And we can see like, okay, if you're training like to failure, and you're doing as many chin-ups as you can on each set, the first set you do 10 reps and you're completely wiped. Second set, you only get about 6 reps out, and you're just completely smashed. You might be resting up to 2 minutes. Third set, you might do 4, and like you're like, whoa, like I'm just completely spent. Then you might do 3, and then you do 1. Okay, so over 5 sets, that's actually 24 repetitions. Okay. Now, if you auto regulate and you work at about 80%, meaning that you kind of leave about 2 reps in the bank each time, again, using 10 as a really simple example, because about 2 reps in the bank or 80% is about 8 reps. So on the first set, you do 8 reps. You could have done 10, but you do 8 and you feel pretty fresh. You rest again. Second set, you can do 8 again. Great. Third set, you can do 8 again. Fourth set, 7. And then the last set, 7. Okay. So now instead of doing 10, 6, 4, 3, 1 and being exhausted, elbows feel like they're going to explode, now you've done 8, 8, 8, 7, 7. So the
38.
first round of exercises, or the first option, you did 24 repetitions. The second one, you did 38 repetitions. So that's like 1.5 almost times as many, or as much volume. And if you just scale that out over the course of a year, 2 years, a decade, number one, you're going to do more than maybe 1.5 times as much volume in your training. Number two, that volume is going to be executed with way better technique. And then number three, your injury risk is going to go down exponentially. Okay. Now, I know a lot of people, like especially bodybuilders, are like, you should go to failure. For maximal muscular growth, 100%, going to failure is going to annihilate your muscle. It's going to make it grow. It's going to damage it more. It's going to grow back more. But also your risk of injury is going to go way up. Your overall ability to get in more volume is probably going to go down. Your rate of fatigue, all of these things are going to go down, and your technique is going to go down. Okay, so we're just thinking like, how can we reduce the risk and give you the best outcome? And that's where auto regulation is just a way better approach for pretty much everyone. Again, unless you're a professional bodybuilder and you're taking loads of anabolic steroids, then you're a different population. Okay, but for the people we're talking about, you probably want to feel good in the next 2 or 3 years. You don't want to be, like Ronnie Coleman, who was the biggest bodybuilder of all time, probably, and he's going around in crutches now. So, yeah, that's just a kind of concrete example.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, if you think about it, most of us aren't professional bodybuilders, and we want to train so we can do a lot of other things in life, whether that's hiking with family or, playing with, lifting your kid onto the tree branch, or whatever it may be. I don't know if that's a health and safety violation. I'm not a parent, but it's if you've really pumped it so hard and you can't lift your arms the next day, that's not going to be good for anyone. So
Yeah.
yeah, daddy, let me play in the tree. Sorry, can't lift you
Just
today, kid.
in bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Yeah. So yeah, it's just kind of thinking like, okay, you want your workouts to make you feel better. I remember I did a workshop with Steve Maxwell 2016 in Melbourne. Steve Maxwell, he's like I think he's in his late 60s now, and he is incredible. He's one of the most respected strength coaches in the world. He's huge with BJJ as well. And he was saying that like when you're training, you should be staying pretty relaxed. It's actually what Ryan from GMB Fitness says as well. Like you should be staying relaxed in your face. If you're gone bright red and you're like huffing and puffing all the time, you're overexerting yourself. And like just compare it to like a gymnast or a dancer, they always look relaxed. And that's where you want to try to get to. Of course, if you're starting or you've just you're learning new stuff in a certain week, it's going to be clunky, it's going to look ugly at the start, like again those initial 20 hours, but then you're really trying to refine the movement so it looks really beautiful, it looks pretty, it looks really nice, and you're doing it with, even though you're exerting yourself, it's feeling challenging, you're executing it with really, really good form, so you're looking like you're completely in control of the movement and you're mastering the movement essentially.
I was just wondering, is your face nice and relaxed when you do your dancing?
No. There's actually in bachata, it's really funny because have you heard of Ido Portal?
Yes.
So like for people, a lot of people know Ido Portal, like amazing. He's actually the most well-paid coach in the world. He trained Conor McGregor. He's amazing. He's unbelievable. Huge fan of what he does, and he has the people who are qualified, or he doesn't actually do certifications, but the people who like have done a lot of Ido stuff, they're unbelievable practitioners. And one of the things that like movement culture, which is kind of what Ido coined that term, whatever, 10, 15 years ago, and it's created a really, positive impact on the fitness industry. One of the movements to do is it's a spinal wave. So it's teaching you how to articulate your spine, like from your upper back down to your lower back, and just actually understanding how to move the vertebrae, which is something that we don't do a lot of times in kind of strength and conditioning as well. You're told to like keep a neutral spine, or you're gonna die or whatever, but you want your spine to actually, you want to get movement through your spine. And there is a place for keeping a neutral spine as well. But like to go to one of Ido's workshops is not cheap. Like it's €1,000 for 2 days, and there's probably 50 or 60 people there. And they teach you all of these, spinal waves. And like you go to a bachata class for €5, and it's spinal waves is like one of the first things you learn in bachata. It's really interesting, so it's very good, very humbling, because I've been kind of in the category of coaches in the kind of movement coach sphere, like a mobility coach and that kind of stuff, and I like this type of training. But when I do something like bachata and dancing, my movement is terrible. Like it's really, really bad. And it's just very humbling. The body awareness of dancers is just amazing. So yeah, I think they're the best movers in the world for sure.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing to see someone dance well.
Yeah. And just your awareness of how to move your body, that's really cool. Like, so seeing like high level dancers, and especially dancing with someone else, because there's such a connection there, like about where you're going and the other person knows where you're going. Yeah, that's super cool. Like, so I'm excited about getting better, getting less bad, basically.
Do you ever watch that scene from Along Came Polly, just to give you some motivation? Do you ever see that movie?
No, I haven't.
With Ben
What's that?
Stiller and Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, I think I've seen that. Yeah, but I can't remember the scene.
Yeah,
Is it?
I don't want to spoil the film for those who haven't seen it, but surprise, surprise, he learns how to dance, and
Great.
yeah, no, it's just quite a sweet scene.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover today. Do you have any last words you want to share?
No, I just hope it wasn't the mention of Ben Stiller that brought this conversation to a close.
We're meant to be going for another half hour, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
we're done.
Uh, Thanks, Connor. It's been great to catch up
Yeah.
and have a chat.
Awesome, mate. So yeah, guys, we're going to be trying to do these every 2 weeks or so. Just me and Brad kind of touching base and just talking about what we're seeing is working really well with our clients, what we're working on ourselves, and hopefully sharing a few tips along the way. So that's it, guys. If you like this, just comment below if you're in the Facebook group. If you're listening to this on the podcast, we'd really appreciate you rating the podcast as well. Awesome.
Have a good Friday, rest of it.